Good morning and welcome to Ask Andy. This is a daily podcast about personal injury practice in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'm Andrew Neuwirth. I've been away for a while during pandemic, not podcasting, so it's good to be back in the saddle. I wanted to talk to you today about injuries from airbags. So I'll talk on other days about, when your airbags go off, when they don't go off, but this is specifically about what happens when they do go off. So basically, I'm not an expert in airbags, but I'll tell you that there's a little gas inflator, and the goal of the airbag is obviously to save your life and not have you go crashing into the steering wheel or into the dashboard or through the window. So, assuming you're wearing your seatbelt and the airbag inflates, in a split second when you hit something, what happens? So, you hit the seatbelt, then the airbag essentially hits you in the face and chest, and it slows the impact pressure on you, but there's still a lot of energy going into your body, and that energy becomes dangerous. So a lot of the initial injury from an airbag is usually, people complain a lot of times about chemical burns on one or both arms just from the chemical that's used to inflate the airbag in such a rapid manner. So there's gas released, it burns your arms. It's not the end of the world, but it's upsetting, and the chemical burns are painful. So that's usually the first thing that happens at accident scenes is people are, have these kind of lightly burned inside of their arms. The next thing is when the airbag goes off, oftentimes, it's meant to slow you down, and it does, but that impact often causes a fractured sternum. So what's a sternum? A sternum, you may know, is like the little bone kind of in the middle of your chest. It's like below your nipple line, but it's right above the it's kind of soft part of the top of your abdomen. So, it's where your ribs connect. It's a very, very, very sensitive part of your body. But, at the same time that it's very sensitive, there's actually very little that can be done to help you with a fractured sternum. So it's kind of, the fractured sternum and the fractured pelvis are kind of known as some of the more painful injuries you can have. There's very little treatment for them. If you have open heart surgery, most of the time they just let that fracture, because they have to open up your sternum to get to your heart. Most of the time they just let you heal on its own, but it's very, very tender and very, very painful. So there's not like a cast they can put on. If you have a displaced sternum fracture, sometimes I think they will try and knit it together with wire, but I haven't seen that happen from airbag injuries. So, you have this fractured sternum. It's very painful. It's like 6 to 8 weeks of just dealing with exhausting pain, but it does get better. So, all other times people will compensate with their arms or just be told to kind of take 4 to 6 weeks off work when that happens. Other injuries I've seen are broken collarbones because the airbag, particularly on a smaller woman, the airbag won't hit you in the chest. It'll hit them in the collarbone. So your collarbones are, right below your neck, and they actually break fairly easily, but they also heal fairly easily. And, if you have to have surgery on a broken collarbone, it's a fairly routine surgery, but obviously not fun. Other injuries that result are sometimes, in women with osteoporosis particularly, you may see a spinal fracture in the thoracic. That's the kind of the middle of the back. And usually they correspond with the level of the airbag and the sternum. So boom, the airbag goes off, hits you in the sternum. That pressure is still going backwards, and you're pushed into the back, and you have weak, kind of brittle bones to begin with, and you end up with a fractured vertebrae or a fractured collarbone. What other injuries are there that, stem from airbags other than those? So those are kind of the easy ones. The harder ones are sometimes people get glass from the, surrounding accident problem in the car, like some part of glass breaks in the car, and the airbag inflation forces it into your eye, and you'll get, either cornea damage or real, more serious eye damage that needs to be looked at immediately. But people don't think about, oh, I had this airbag explode, I'm having eye problems. They just are like, wow, I'm in a tremendous amount of pain from burns or from a fractured sternum or, just being through this whole thing. They don't think about, wow, there's this other, something's wrong with my left eye vision. So that's just something to be aware of. And usually what happens at the scene is, bystanders come, kind of get the airbag out of the way, pull you out of the car, and then EMS or police are hopefully there to kind of get you checked out. So that's pretty much like airbag injuries, but airbags going off tells you that you've got a serious crash. Oftentimes there are crashes where someone turns left in front of you, you're proceeding through a green light with, normal flow of traffic. All of a sudden there's a car in front of you and boom, you crash into it and your airbag goes off. There's a whole other discussion for when airbags are supposed to go off, when they don't go off, this, that, and the other thing. But the key kind of takeaway is that, airbags going off are intended to save your life. There's been a lot of litigation over Takeda, I think it's Takeda airbags, and the inflators there were either acting, in a manner they weren't designed for, or they were designed in a negligent or destructive manner. That's something we can talk about if you need help with that. But, there's been a lot of litigation around airbags, but, in your basic car accident, you're going to be injured by your airbag, but the intention is to save your life and not injure you. So, that's pretty much it on airbag injuries. They're pretty clear, they're pretty immediate, and they're gonna be there because of the accident and not because of anything you did or the other person did. It's just the nature of that crash is a head-on crash at high speed with the airbag deploying, and then for whatever reason, it's catching you in a manner that is going to cause some injury. But it's one of those things where we're trying to save your life instead of just your sternum, which you can recover from. So this podcast is sponsored by my law firm, Neuwirth Law Office. I'm a King of Prussia personal injury lawyer that's in the suburbs of Philadelphia. I'm happy to talk to you. People email and call all the time with just general questions. And, we'll be having some guests in the near future on the podcast. All right, I hope all's well. I hope you're enjoying our bizarre life in a pandemic, and see you next time. I hold you people accountable.